All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the stream. Hope everybody is doing well tonight. As you can see here, we have some visual updates, which is much improved over yesterday. So we'll circle back to that in a minute. Before we get started with the stream, though, I do just want to take a quick second and thank the supporters of the channel, beginning with our elite partners. The elite partner is the highest tier of subscription over on YouTube memberships and Patreon. That is Javier Olazaran. I would also like to thank the partners listed here. That is the next tier of subscription over on YouTube memberships and Patreon. They are Furkan Tokan, Gorbali Zinc, and Matt Osgard. I would also like to thank all of the other supporters listed here. They are a combination of the other tiers of support over on YouTube memberships, Patreon, as well as Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for your support. It is greatly appreciated and helps me cover the cost of things like hosting fees, software licenses, eventually things like maybe assets, things like that, having to do with upkeeping the channel. So thank you very much for that. That all being said, this project and thus this channel would not exist without you guys, the viewers, whether you're here live on the Twitch side or the YouTube side, or whether you're catching the VOD after the fact. Every one of you guys means a lot to me, so thank you guys very much for being here. All right, so Spiro and Smudge trying to get first in there. That's hilarious. Good to see you guys. Yeah, the visuals are coming along. It is missing the terrain, but we've disabled that for now because that requires blended materials, and we haven't re-implemented that yet. Mostly because I'm not sure how I want to do it. So we're kind of tabling that for now. I'm probably going to push that off to the next release because I think in order to start prototyping our game, we don't need terrains right away. So I can kind of continue working on that in a side feature branch once we're done with this refactor, and we can kind of move things forward. Tammin, good to see you as well. Welcome. Hope you're doing well. Over there on the YouTube side, me and Mr. Mustard, and I don't know how to pronounce your name. How is that pronounced? Is it M-Mode? M-Mode? I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that, but welcome. I am doing well. Thank you for asking. Appreciate that. Goat Cedric, good to see you as well. From Lake, welcome. Yes, the problem of yesterday, we will go over that. It was actually something we were kind of barking up the wrong tree, but kind of not. So we'll get into that as well. Galactic Pass, good to see you as well. Oh, it's Muhammad. Okay. I wasn't sure because of like the underscore and like the letters and numbers mixed and all that. I wasn't sure. Okay. Well, it's good to have you all here. All right. So what we're looking at here is obviously I've done some bug fixing offline, and things look better, but they're not 100% better. We're still missing some key things, and I noticed something a little bit before the stream that we still need to fix. So we still have some graphical issues we need to fix. Our cascading shadow maps work. Our different render modes work. So now we can look at the lighting, we can look at the normals, we can look at the cascades. That is all working again. And then, of course, we have wireframe available as well. There's a couple of artifacts and issues we need to resolve. And that's just for what we're looking at here. So the list of things that we're looking at, obviously we have our debug grid back, right? So we've got that, so that's good. There are a few things. For one, this tree is actually being drawn out of order. This should be drawn after the water, and it's not for some reason. And that's why we have those artifacts there. That was previously existing though, so I'm not as concerned with that. We can adjust that going forward. There seems to be an issue with the blending of the water material here. This should be showing through to this sort of brick texture. And if we look at anything else that intersects with the water, it's kind of the same story. So within the Sponza, we kind of have the same thing here. And we're missing our refraction, I think is what's happening here. It looks like we have our reflection in here, but it doesn't look like we have our refraction, right? Because we should have all of this appearing below that. And so something's going on with our refraction map. So there's that. And then there's also this other issue that I noticed, where if we pan the camera away and there's no geometries being rendered, the water plane just sort of follows us like that and sort of glitches out until we render geometries again. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. And then finally, the last issue is if I turn off validation, right, in our application config, and run this again, bring this down here, we have no UI, and our skybox doesn't render. And so, interestingly enough, also this seems to default to showing this dark blue background as opposed to the lighter background, which I think was the skybox before. So there's a bit of an issue there as well. So we've got some things to work on tonight, but materials are in a lot better condition, and we did figure out what those issues were last night. So it wasn't actually any of the structure alignment stuff on the C side. There were a couple of issues within the shaders and how we were passing data to them, though. So it wasn't necessarily a C issue. It was more of an issue with the material shader itself. So if we open up I guess let's open up the fragment shader. That's good enough. And we'll also open up the material system. Let's see. Art, good to see you. How's it going? I was just on your stream. That's good to have you here. I'm glad to see you're here. Welcome. Sergeant Pepper, good to see you as well. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's looking good. It's coming along, right? But it's still got some issues that came up from the refactor. So we're going to work our way through those tonight and see how many of them we can knock out. Next is dynamics, because if all those buildings would sync, it would be spectacular. Yeah, probably not. What else do you need in order to finish the refactor? I suppose we could look at that really quickly. We'll look at that, though, after I explain last night's issue. So here on the left, we have our GLSL file. And you'll note that I've done a little bit of refactoring of the frame UBO. So this is the structure we were kind of struggling with last night. So I did a little bit of reading up on the way that alignment works with this, and the way that arrays within that work, and specifically this STD40, which is extended alignment. And basically the issue is that we were using arrays all over the place, and they were not padded out the way that we thought they were. So GLSL actually requires, and thus Vulkan requires, with this layout, that array elements actually be padded out to a certain amount. And when we're using STD140, which is sort of the default without any extensions, array elements are padded out to the nearest 16-byte alignment, which means if you have a vector, or a array rather, of floats, right? If we had this, then that means that we have 4 bytes and then 12 bytes of padding and then the next element. And that was one of the reasons that we were getting so screwed up last night, was because of that. And so what I did was I went through and kind of refactored the way that we're passing data to this to compress things a little bit, and also match up a little bit more with what we expect in terms of passing from the front end to the back end. So our view positions could stay as is. These 2 arrays could stay as is. This projection could stay as is. Everything from here down changed. So cascade splits is now a vector 4. That does kind of take us back to being limited by 4 cascades for our shadow maps. So I have a to-do in here, but I don't know if I'm ever going to get around to it, to be honest. I don't know if it's worth supporting more than 4 splits or not. So for now, I'm just going to put a pin in that. I'm okay with 4 splits now. If we want to, we can always add another vector 4. But by passing it as a vector 4, we do meet that whole 16-byte alignment for the whole thing, so we're good. The other thing that I did was I have these new params and options, right? So we have params, which contains our shadow bias, our delta time, and our game time, and then one that's unused, which is just padding, right? And so these are float values that we want to use. These were all individual fields before. They've been compressed into a vector 4. And they are indexed via defines that we have up here. So we have defines up here for the indices for the options and one for the params, right? So we have one for params, then we have options, which is a UVec4, which basically is a vector 4 of unsigned 32-bit integers. So this one only contains a couple options for right now. We have the render mode, that's the first index, and then we have the use PCF, which is our shadow filtering as the second option with two empty spots there. And so by doing this, we save ourselves a lot of room because we're not having all this unnecessary padding. And we can index these things somewhat easily by using the defines that we made up above. So in the material system itself, we changed up the frame uniform data to match that, right? So I've got little notes here about what all the paddings are, what all the sizes of these things are. And basically what we've done is we've padded this structure out. You'll notice I've got an additional vector 4 here, padding at the bottom. That is to round this entire structure out to 64-byte alignment, right? So we were doing that anyways via our stride because that's what my particular GPU requires, and probably most will require 64-byte, maybe 32 or 16, depending on the device. But either way, we'll be safe by having this, and we won't be wasting any space. So we've got a little bit of padding here to add in some additional options if we want to do that. We also have some space within the options and params to actually do that as well. So we have a little bit of flexibility here in terms of adding stuff later, which we will be doing. So you'll note that I got rid of all of the packed and aligned stuff here. We didn't wind up needing any of that. All that was just, it was just an issue of us not taking into account the STD 140 byte alignment requirements. So that was that was the crux of the issue. I found a couple of other small bugs within the shader to fix, but that was the primary issue that we were having. And so if I take a look at a render doc capture, and I'm actually just going to go, let's see, let's do this first one, or maybe this, I guess, yeah, we'll do this one. So we're doing the forward standard pass that we were looking at before. If I take a look at the pipeline state in the fragment shader, and then we take a look at the uniform buffer, we now have 8 variables and 704 bytes. So there's no less or more than expected. It's exactly what's expected. And we also did the same thing for the material group UBO. And so both of those things align. If we inspect the data, let me get rid of this. If we inspect the data, we can see that it lines up as we expect. Let me just expand this a little bit. So here's our directional light spaces. Here's our views. First two are filled out. Second two aren't used, as expected for now. Here's our projection matrix. That is correct. If we take a look at our view positions, I think this is probably actually behind my head. So let me move this over here real quick. Over this way. There we go. So here's our views. Here's our projection. And then here's our view positions. Again, those are correct. The first two are filled out. The second two are not. Those align with these. And then we have our cascade splits, which is all the correct values now. And then we have our parameters here, which is also correct, and our options, which is also correct. And of course, our padding, which is 0 across the board. So all of that suffices to say that materials are figured out for the most part. We do have a couple of minor things in terms of the water material I've got to figure out. And that's kind of what I was looking into debugging here. So we do have that refraction map not showing for some reason. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on with that. But let's go ahead and take a look into that, I guess, since we're talking about it. So if we take a look at our, this is the draw call for the water plane, right? If we take a look at what we have bound here, so here's our shadow texture, right, our shadow map. Here's our irradiance texture, so that's correct too. We're getting that reflection map so that we know that's correct. So let me actually flip over to the water shader. Okay, so we have reflection, then refraction depth, then DUV, and normal. So I'm thinking this second one for some reason just isn't being treated correctly. So here is this is the reflection map, right? This is the refraction, which actually looks correct. Right, so this is everything that's below the water's surface, and we have it clipped. We have a clipping plane, right? So it's everything that's showing up below the water's surface is what should be here. Although I'm not 100% sure that's right. Actually, it looks like it's a little bit too high because it's actually including the floor of this, which is not there. So we may have to fine-tune that. I don't think it's actually based off the water's position right now. I think we're hard-coding it. So we'll have to fix that, which explains why the reflections are a little bit off. Okay, so we have that. It looks like our DUDV texture is correct and our normal texture is correct. So all of our maps are bound correctly. So I'm wondering then if we have some sort of data issue within. I wonder if we have some sort of data issue within the water shader itself. So if we take a look at, because see, I haven't actually done the alignment stuff on the group UBO, so there might be something wrong there. Let's take a look at the material frame UBO for the water. I think this is correct because it's actually the same exact structure as what we have for materials. Yep. Okay, so this all looks correct to me. These are roughly the same values that we had before. So the group UBO is possibly wrong. So we have the directional lights. That's fine. The number of lights is 1, so we should only have something in the first one. All of that looks correct, and then everything else should be zeroed out, I believe, all the way down. Yeah. Okay, so that looks correct. Lighting model is 1. Flags is 20. Okay, is it something in the draw UBO then? Radiance cube map index is 0. Our model matrix looks fine. Our view index looks fine. Tiling, wave strength, wave speed, all are valid as well. So why isn't that blending correctly then? That's very strange. Let's see. Thank you for the follow, by the way. I appreciate that. Can't blame the water for doing its own thing. It's not being validated. Yeah, exactly. Orshi, good to see you as well. Welcome. Weiro, hello over there on the YouTube side, singing as well. How's it going? So frustrating to learn Vulkan and getting lost in the void of Vulkan initialization before even seeing anything on the screen. Yeah, it's a big hurdle to get over, but once you get over it, and once you get shaders implemented and figure out how you're going to manage your descriptor sets, it's kind of a downhill battle from there. You run into kind of stupid stuff like we're running into here, but that's because we ripped everything apart, so that's kind of my own fault. I don't really blame Vulkan for that. Doing great, working on my toy text editor and watching you progress on this. Love watching you work. Awesome. I appreciate that. What kind of text editor are you making? Because I'm looking to make a Vim replacement myself. All right. So let me think. I guess we should probably debug where that color is coming from. So let's take a look at water planes, and then we want the currently bound image. Interesting. So this is... Why is it cut out like that? That's weird. I feel like there's a lot more stuff that should have been drawn before we actually got to the water planes. Like, I feel like the water plane should have been drawn much later. Maybe that's the problem, it's being drawn too soon. Because we have, let's see, we have... I think that's only the reflection map that we're seeing there. Okay, so I guess let's look at... I suppose I probably ought to adjust the clipping plane first so that we actually get a proper... Okay, let me take a new capture for something. I just want to see something really quickly. So what we're going to do is we're just going to launch this. Get rid of that capture. We'll take another one. All right. Actually, it does look like the clipping plane is at the right height. It's just not... It's not giving me the geometry below the water surface. It's only giving me the reflection as far as I can see. No, it is actually there. This is it here. But why is it just blue? Is that the issue? Is it just... Trying to figure out what's going on there. I feel like it's only giving me... All right, let's take a capture of this. Let's do from right here. You're doing it in Rust, though, you know, C Wizard. I find C a simpler language to use than Rust. By a lot, actually. Okay. A Vim replacement that's offensive. I'm offended, sir. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, I like NeoVim a lot, right? But like, I'm not a huge fan of how much you have to configure it to get it to work the way that, at least the way that I want it, right? So I've been joking about this Notepad thing, or Notepad really, which is kind of a joke on Notepad but it's a terminal based editor that I've kind of started working on. It's nowhere near ready for use yet, but I want to make something that is lightweight but still has the most of the features that I'm looking for. So we'll see. We'll see. Don't get offended yet. I haven't had a chance to work on it though for like 6 months. So, Lazy Man, how's it going? Refactor is going well. So we actually solved a lot of the issues that we had last night. So now it's just an issue of picking up more things that I've discovered that are wrong. And interestingly, I'm wondering if this only happens on Windows, because I'm actually booted into Windows tonight, not Linux. Because it's been forever since I've actually thoroughly tested this stuff on Windows. So I'm actually wondering if this is kind of like a Windows issue or something. I don't completely understand what is causing this to turn blue. So let's pick, like, I don't know, here. And we will... Why can we not debug that? Why are there failed events? That might be why. Depth test failed. Depth test failed. These are all depth test failed. Okay, so if the, why would the depth test fail? Let me go to refraction pass. And let me see if I can find the actual draw call. There's a crap ton of objects here. There we go. So that's the brick wall. Okay, I don't see anything here that looks wrong. This is drawing how I would expect, and it's clipping where I would expect. Okay, so here we go. Okay. So this fails the depth test because the water plane is in front of it, which does make sense. This passes, but it still doesn't explain what are the event IDs on this? 11,000. Oh, I see. That's all these other draws back here. That's why. Yeah, because this is, what was this? 11,568. Uh, 568. Here we go. Right there. Okay. So I just happened to click here. Okay, that actually makes sense. All right, so all of those should have failed. This, though, I don't quite understand. I don't quite understand why this one didn't do the thing. So oh, this is debug pass. One fragment touching pixel. I wonder what fragment that was. Did I happen to click on something from the... Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to worry about that one. That's irrelevant. So it's got to be water planes skybox. See, the skybox should have affected it too, and it has not. So this is all there is to the skybox shader once it's, compiled into SPUR-V. What is the final color? This has a final color, so why did it not output that? Same with this. If we debug this one, now this is the water shader. We should have here sampled image. Let's see. We want, was it material textures 3? No. 1. Okay, so material textures. I guess I'm gonna have to search for it. There it is. Okay. So let's execute up to this point. Okay. So we get the image. We get the sampler. We get the texture coordinate. And then that should give us the refract color, which is right there. Which is more like a gray, closer to like a dark. That's like a brick color, I'm thinking. Okay, so we have the refract color is good at that point. Here's the reflect color. Let me look at the actual shader. So for reference, here's where we're taking those two, right? So here's the reflect color, here's the refract color. And I haven't transposed those. I don't think I got that wrong. I swear it was working earlier. We said we make the color slightly darker since it's wet. I wonder if that... Well, no, we're doing a clamp on that, so that should be fine. Oh, wait a minute, though. Maybe this is foobarring it. So let's see, we do... Here's the clamp right there. Okay, so we're clamping 362, which is right here. So that is a little bit darker. Okay, we feed that back into the... Wait a minute, that's the... Wait a minute, this doesn't seem right to me. Refract should be slightly darker. Why are we subtracting the reflect color here? That's wrong. This should be refract color RGB minus 0.2. We then take that and we clamp it between 0 and 1.0. Let me see if that does it. Let me run this again. I'm just going to run it this way this time and see if it looks better. Let's bring this down. Not really. Oh, we can see it though. It is right there because this part here is the reflection. This is the refracted texture here. So it is coming through. Okay. Okay, so once we take that, we calculate Fresnel, and then we mix the two of those based on that. And it looks like we set this to a darker blue. And then mix that with that. Okay. Let me try turning that off. Completely getting rid of our tint, right? But like, that still doesn't look right though. But at least now we can see it. We can see the plants down there. But why is it so... Why is this so backwards? I think the water plane is being drawn too soon. I think the water plane needs to be drawn over top of this stuff. So if we go to the forward render graph node, I'm just going to kill this for now. And we do render water planes. The way that this works we loop through all of our geometries. Anytime we run into a different material, we first check to see if that material has transparency. If it does, we stop rendering, we render the water plane, and then switch back to the material. That is correct. I don't think that's changed. So why is it rendering so much earlier? Is it having to do with we have a bunch of materials in here that have changed? I don't know. Let's look at bricks. There. That should not be transparent. Why did that get marked as transparent when we imported it this time? That, I'll bet, is the issue. Because I'll bet if I change this to false, and we switch back, and we run, voila, it's fixed. So, we have a bunch of materials that are getting false transparent flags that shouldn't have them. That's the issue. Okay, so that's going to be part of our import process, I believe. So we want importer static mesh obj, and then Let's see. Has transparency. Okay. Okay, we were making some assumptions here, and I remember this wasn't necessarily always going to be correct. So what does the spawns material use in terms of transparency? I am actually going to do... I'm going to look at the source materials. Okay, so transparency. Oh, this specifies both. So these should have an inverse relationship, right? So so like if D is 1, then TR should be 0. If TR is 1, then D should be 0. Something tells me I've got that foobar. Because if that's anything less than... Oh, there's also actually... That might not actually be the problem. These also specify... Oh, crap. These specify alpha maps, which is what I was banking on, only being specified if it's actually an alpha. Okay. Let me try searching for this and see if there's any of these that are not 1. Because I think, yeah, none of those are 1. Okay. I can change this logic somewhat. So if we have an asset name, and we're going to say, actually, we can't even do that. I was going to say and, but then there's also like plants in here. Right? Which has that. Maybe it's these illumination models. Are they all 2? Of course they're all 2. What can we go on? Right, because this says it's fully opaque, but then it specifies this. So like this is an example of one that should be a material that should have transparency, right? Because of its texture. Do I just default back to false and we just have to manually edit it? Because the thing is, when we're parsing this file, we don't have this... When we're parsing the MTL file, we don't have this file available, right? And we don't want to just parse the image just because of that to determine if it has transparency, right? So maybe we just flip everything back to false and then edit them manually. Because those are definitely the exception, right? So I think I'm going to put a pin in this. Find a reliable way to tell from the material definition if transparency should be supported for the material without looking up the alpha texture map. Assuming false always for now instead. Thought that was a clever fix, but apparently not. All right, so to fix this, first off, we got to build. Let's see. Really cool that you talk with the community at large. Saw you on Hero Dev, Tokyo Spliff, etc. Yeah, I do. I like interacting with those guys. I always feel like there's lots that I can learn, right? And I feel like anytime that I can learn something, that's a good thing, and anytime that I can help is also a good thing, right? Because I like the exchange of knowledge. So yeah, thank you for that, though. I appreciate that. All right, let's see. Doing a text editor is really fun, but it's also a lot of work. Heck yes, it is. Especially when it comes to string manipulation and all the things you have to be able to do, like find and replace. Not quite as easy as you might think it is. Depending on how far you want to go, I want to have a lot of sensible defaults like LSP, better file picker, and things like fuzzy finder, but I also want the customizability of NeoVim. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking, minus the customizability, I think, at least for the initial version of it. Because I do want LSP support, at least some LSP support, and then also a fuzzy finder is a must, for sure. Like, as you can see, I use that all the time in here. You have a Lua runtime for scripting. Takes a lot of work, but this project is a baby still. Yeah, so that's probably something I would do after the fact. I would probably just have the scripting be a DLL plugin. Let's see. Hello, I know this sounds strange, but how did you read game engine architecture? Did you take notes and choose specific chapters, or did you read it cover to cover? Both. So I've read it cover to cover multiple times, actually, but I also use it as a reference now and again, every time I need to look something up. I also have gone through and read specific sections multiple times and taken notes and stuff like that too. Most of them handwritten on a notebook that I have no idea where it actually wound up, but yeah. Sometimes for me, physically writing something out helps me stick it up here. Hope that makes sense. Let's see. I'm planning on starting your video series tomorrow. I really want to get at least a solid understanding of engine development. Thank you for your work. I appreciate that. I hope the series helps. It's not what I would call the most organized thing, right? If I were to start it over, there's a few things I would do differently. But, we kind of changed formats a couple of times too, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't along the way, and having you guys guide me in that process along the way. So, we had some successes and some, I guess I won't call them failures, but, misses, right? But that's just the way it goes, right? No, I'm here on Twitch. I was on mobile. Oh, I see you crossed over. Okay. LSP is so time consuming. There's like 9,000 atoms. Yeah, I can only imagine. That's not something I'm looking forward to. And I'm going to actually eventually have to write an LSP for our storage format here, so that we have like syntax highlighting and auto completion and things like that. So eventually I'm going to have to write one, a custom one, and then, we'll have to implement it. All right, let me see. I want to delete the spawns. Actually, I'm going to delete all of these again. We're just going to re-import. Okay, so we're going to run. And we're going to load. And this is basically just going to do all the geometry deduplication and all that stuff that we do. It's going to take a minute. One of these days I'll speed up this process too, but it only happens on import, so I'm not really worried about it. Once we convert to our custom file format, it's quick. So community on Twitch and YouTube is great. Almost wish I could stream, but I don't know how you folks do it. It's like being in permacode interview. I feel like it's actually helped me, because I use it as a bit of a rubber duck almost. So it kind of like, at first it kind of sucked and it was difficult to get used to, but in the long run, I think it's really been helpful. And I feel like it's made me a better programmer, actually. I don't know if that helps or not, but oh, I forgot to add the tint back, but it looks like it's fixed. Okay, so that was interesting. Okay, so we're gonna have to work out a better sorting algorithm for that to handle those cases. All right, so let's add the tint back because this looks like poop without it. So that was in the material water fragment shader. We're just going to uncomment that. I do need to actually get hot reloading up and running. I think I've got it mostly in place, but I haven't tested it yet. And I don't really want to test it while I'm still debugging the system. Okay. All right, so this looks much better. The reason the color's a little bit off is because we don't have a terrain, and also our skybox isn't rendering. So, oh, and I have to change a couple materials to be transparent. Ooh, I just had a thought too. I wonder how that's going to work with these shapes under here. Because these things are transparent textures, but they're not being rendered that way. So let me go to, in fact, I could probably just roll back some changes here. Because this one should be, we'll revert that change. And the bark should not have transparency. I don't know why that was marked as having it. It should not. Okay. Let's see. What is one of the other ones? It's going to be a sponza material. I think it was plant. Let me just do it in here. I thought it was KMT. Leaf, maybe it is. Oh, these are the thorns. Nope, that's an old one. You know what? That's another thing I need to do. I'm going to quit Vim for this for a second. So we also have something that's been driving me a little bit nuts, and I was waiting to do it until we got on stream. So we have like multiple copies of assets, right? We have this testbed assets, which is mostly defunct and not used anymore. The only thing I think we're actually still using out of it is scenes, sounds, terrains, and actually I think that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that, select materials, select models, shaders, and textures. I'm going to get rid of those, which is going to be a lot of files. But yeah, we just don't need to have all those duplicate assets around, right? We do need to migrate scene loading over to the new asset system. And then all that'll be left is sounds and terrain, which we already said we're going to do in the next release. So there's that to do. Okay. The reason I quit Vim is because I wanted it to completely refresh its file list. Let's see. Woody refactoring everything? No, not quite. We've reworked the way that our assets slash materials or assets slash resources are handled in the system. So now we have a few new systems to replace that. Before it was kind of each type of asset kind of did its own thing, and assets and resources were kind of the same concept, and now they've been separated. So an asset is an in-memory representation of something that's been loaded from disk. So it might be a text file, it might be an image, it might be a static mesh, something along those lines. A resource is something that is actually usable by the engine. So that's typically something that gets loaded into the GPU, like a texture, for example. So you have a texture resource, or you have a static mesh resource. And so the way that that differs from assets is assets can technically be used for multiple different things. So the example I always use is images are a type of asset, right? We don't have a texture asset, we have an image asset. And that's because images can be used not only for textures, but they could also be used for creating a height map terrain, for example. And that doesn't actually require you to load it in as a texture. So there's all kinds of different uses for things. So those systems have been completely split. And they've been written in such a way where they can be asynchronous in nature. Now, we don't have that hooked up yet, but it's been written so that we can Jobify it, so that all assets and resources and the loading of them can be multi-threaded. So we have that. So we basically have the resource system that's the new resource system, I should say, which we call the K resource system, that references the asset system to load stuff off disk. And then the asset system references a package system. And I should say the asset system references a virtual file system, which references packages. So the virtual file system is what's responsible for saying, hey, we need to load an asset called XYZ. Let's search through our packages to see where that asset actually exists. So the virtual file system knows about the packages and knows how to reach out to those packages and perform the load. The package itself has two functions. So there's a sort of debug version of the package where we load files directly off of disk. That's what we're doing now. And then we're going to have a release version of the package where it takes all of those assets and rolls them up into a binary blob. That's basically just one gigantic file with a lookup table in it. And then for release builds, we will just load directly from that. So yeah, that is... I hope that helps. So yeah, we are closing the loop on that refactor. Let's see. Still have a lot more to learn about NeoVim. Since I'm using C++, I'm using Visual Studio, but we'll practice Rust with NeoVim. Yeah, once you break away from Visual Studio, you'll never want to go back to it. I hate using it now. Will you ever be making an editor for Kohi? Yes. So the plan for the editor is I don't want to just like roll an editor right from nothing. My plan is we're going to create the initial version of the editing tools as sort of a debug library plugin alongside the game, right? And we're basically going to have it incremented or implemented in game code. It'll be a little bit specific to the first game that we make. And then what we're going to do is once we have those tools and we know that they work right and we're able to use them to actually make a game, then we're going to extract the parts that make sense to extract into a more standalone editor. So after we release the first game is when we'll probably have something that will look more like an editor that you might expect. Let's see. How I want to learn graphics programming. Which one is easier, OpenGL, DirectX, or Vulkan for a beginner? OpenGL, hands down. Yep. DirectX is good, but the thing is like the newest version of it, 12, is a lot like Vulkan. And Metal would be the other one, which is for Mac OS. And all those, along with Vulkan, are pretty complex, you know. OpenGL has a lot simpler of an API, but there are some drawbacks to that as well that you'll figure out once you get there. But short answer, OpenGL is simpler to get started with. Skelos Music, how's it going? Good to see you. Let's see. Syntax highlighting is decently simple if you don't plan on handling huge files, as for most cases it's just fine to parse the entire file with tree setter and then incrementally add edits. For my experimentation, it gets really complicated to deal with huge files. I bet that's true. Pog refactor is almost done? Yes. It's coming along nicely. Dr. Elliot, good to see you as well. How's it going? Dr. Elliot and Coffee Lava in the room. Pog. Let's see. Will Kohi do something like Godot where it has its own UI framework and the editor is made with the framework? Yes. We are going to have the beginnings of our own UI framework. Text editing game. What would actually be deeply hilarious is to use this engine to make a text editor. Technically possible. Okay. So, what were we doing? No, I don't remember. Let me just... I think we are going to... Did I re-import everything already? I think I did. Yeah, okay. Okay, so those materials do look better. We do have the transparency working again. Our shadow maps are good. Everything looks about like what I would expect. All of our views are working, including wireframe. Okay. All that looks pretty good, I think. So, oh, I think I wanted to check one more thing in here. I did not find the right material for that. And that needs to be transparent as well. I can edit those off camera though. We know it works because of this one, so I'm not gonna waste my time launching and relaunching for that. Okay, so now we need to figure out why the Dingus skybox isn't rendering, right? Because it doesn't make any sense. Because what happens is, for some reason, so that run was with validation off, right? If we turn validation on and run it, suddenly we have UI and we have a skybox, which makes absolutely no sense as to why one would happen and not the other. I'm trying to even think why that would be. Like, I tried putting a memory barrier in between our secondary buffers, like to make sure that execution completed there, and it didn't seem to have an impact. Maybe the validation layer lets some incorrect value slide. That's what I'm wondering, right? Or I'm wondering because, like, part of the thing with validation layers is, and the reason that I have it so that you can turn them on and off and config like that easily, is because they're heavy, right? And part of me is wondering if the heaviness of that is actually partially responsible for what's going on, right? Like maybe it's a timing issue and we're just lucking out. Because the other thing that's really weird is in RenderDoc, if we do a launch, right, and I do a capture, come on. Note the capture has it, right? The preview had it, right? But when we actually open up the capture, it doesn't, right? So just it makes no sense as to why that's happening. And again, both UI and the skybox are missing. And it's like it never got rendered. It's very, very strange. And also, you'll note that all of our debug shapes don't show up either. So, like the grid that we had here, I wish I could show it, but the grid that we had here also doesn't show. Do we have actually? I thought we had. I could have swore there was a way to view like the capture preview, but I guess not. So here's our clears, here's our shadow, right? And then here's our forward refraction pass, right? We'll take a look at that first, I guess. I don't think the skybox is drawing for any of them. So the skybox is first, right? So draw indexed has no impact on it whatsoever. If we, I don't know, we choose any pixel, right? Because any pixel should be influenced by that. We have here's our skybox draw, right? So one fragment's touching the pixel. So if we debug this pixel, and we actually step through this, we have here's the texture coordinate. Here's where the actual sample happens, right? That's where we actually get the color using the sampler and the image. So the color of that is actually there, right? And it's a fairly light color that's mostly leaning towards blue, which is exactly what we'd expect. We set out color here, which is out color is, I guess, 9, I guess is what it's saying. And then we return. So I'm just trying to think why. Like out color here is correct, but then it just doesn't draw here whatsoever. And if we look at the texture viewer itself and we put draw call, it should be covering the whole freaking screen, right? We don't have depth testing on, right? So it's not like it would fail either that or the stencil test. Backface isn't getting called. And again, why would we see it when the application is running, but not when we capture it in RenderDoc? I don't see anything here that baffling. And the fact that the same thing is happening for the skybox, our debug geometry, as well as our UI is very strange. The only thing that I can think maybe because I remember having to do this for right before we do group rebinding for materials. Maybe we need to reapply the frame descriptors, but I don't think that's right either, because I think the correct ones are bound. So if we go to here, right? All we have, this is a relatively simple shader, 2 views and a projection, right? And they're all filled out. And if we look at the draw UBO, we don't have a group one for this. All it contains is a view index, right? To index into this, right? So all we have is that, and then some padding to round it out. Graphics programmers always gives me Terry Davis vibes. Good luck on your engine. This is a huge thing for a solo dev. I appreciate that, I think. Yeah, it is a huge undertaking for sure. And then it turns out you missed a semicolon on line 158. Yeah, it's probably something stupid like that for sure. So here's the skybox mesh, right? So we even know that that is good. And again, we know it's good because it rendered in the application, just didn't show up in the render doc capture, which is frankly very bizarre. If we take a look at, this isn't what I want. If we take a look here, if we take a look there, and then how did I get to that? This is what I wanted. If we take a look at this, so here is our vertex information, right? So can I expand this a little bit? There we go. So it's just a standard 3D mesh, right? So our position is based off of a 5-unit. I guess it's 10 units wide in terms of how big the cube actually is. And it goes just negative and positive half extents. So all of those look correct. If we take a look at the normal, all of those look correct, which not that it's used anyways, but it's there. The texture coordinates look correct. Again, that wouldn't cause it not to render though. And then the in color, we set to white across the board. So it's not like we're multiplying that and getting rid of it somehow. I don't even think we're actually using it. And then tangents, right, are also correct. I guess I don't see anything weird going on with this. I wonder if it's... So this is the logic that actually renders the water plane, right? Oh wait, this isn't even what I want. I want skybox. Okay. So here's that debug label that we see in RenderDoc, right? We turn off depth test and depth right. And then if we have geometry that's loaded, we do the draw. I don't inherently see anything wrong with this, because if we didn't have this, we wouldn't see this label appear at all in RenderDoc, which we do right there. So I don't think that's failing. We zero out the position of the skybox so that it doesn't move. Do we need... Yeah, I guess we do need the inverted view matrix. Okay, so we bind the frame for the skybox shader. Here's where we set our projection and our two views. Those look correct. Then we set that uniform. And then we apply it. And then per group, we only have the cube texture, which gets set. Now I know that works too, so we then apply that. And then the per draw, we just have a view index. We set that and then apply it. And then we draw it, right? Ignore this deprecated stuff, it still works, because that's how we're drawing everything else. And we know the draw call is succeeding. We know the draw call is succeeding because the data in here would not show up if it was failing, right? So let's see here. Let me see about these events leading up to it. So see, we're using the correct descriptor sets. Bizarre. Let's see. Tangents are for the for normal mapping. The only reason our skybox actually has them is because we're using the same format of geometry that we use for static meshes, and so we need to know, the normal, tangent, and bitangent, and so we can get the normal and we can generate the tangent, and we could technically generate the bitangent as well, but we do that in the shader. So those are used to transform the normal map into the surface normal scope, or scope is not the word I want. Space, I guess, is the word I want. But that's what that is. For Wero, have a good one. Thank you for that. Let's see. If the application and capture thumbnail are correct, is there really a bug in your program? Yes, I'm saying there is a bug in the program. Are the normals backface correct? You can set flat shaded and use VS out on render doc mesh to preview to check. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. You are talking about cull mode is front, right? But here's the thing, like, I mean, I can try setting it to none, right? Where is there it is. This one. Right, we're culling front faces. Let's just do none. I guess we'll do another render dot capture, sure. Why do I have so many? Let's get rid of some of this stuff. Okay. Let's launch. Oh wait, do I have... Hold on, this might not actually be correct. Well, yeah, we have validation on, so that's why it's showing in the application. Yeah, let me do this. Yeah, let me actually do this. So yeah, here's the thing, right? So we load, it's rendering correctly, right? We have the skybox, we have the grid that you can see here, we have the UI, right? I take a capture of that, close this, wait for it to do its thing, and there we have it. So if we go to, because it doesn't really matter which one, but I'll do this last one because that's what we're looking at here. So we grab this draw call, and again, the draw call is right there, right? And we look here, we're not calling anything. So it shouldn't be doing that. That's the mind-boggling question. You could use the previous window, no need to change and rerun on the mesh view tab. Oh, you're talking about this? What were you saying? Let me see. Let me scroll back up. VS out. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what that is, but yeah, I mean, we should be getting something for sure. I guess we could do whole pass, right? But like even whole pass, it still shows. The face is correct. Yeah. And that's the thing, like it's very strange because it shows in the application if validation's on. It does not show in the application if validation's off. When I run it from RenderDoc, did I change? Let me change this to false. Switch back to RenderDoc. Now if I run this, right, and I don't have API validation forced here, right? If I launch this now it gives me the same results, right? And I can load this, and we get that. And if I take a capture, it'll give me this. So even the preview is consistent now. So we can go here. It's still not there, right? So if I go to Mesh Viewer, whoops. Go to Mesh Viewer, right? It's still like we're inside of it, right? Like we're right up on its business. So validation isn't breaking something. Validation is fixing something. That's the weird part, right? So the issue is, let me run this without RenderDoc, right? So I'm just going to run it. Validation is off right now, right? So we have Vulkan validation off. When I run this, we get no UI, no skybox, no debug objects, none of the lines being drawn, right? If I kill this, flip this to true, which means Vulkan validation layers will be loaded, and run it again. Now we have our UI back, and our skybox, and our debug objects. We're inside of it. We're right up in its business. Yep. Spiro. I hope you clipped that. If you didn't, I'm deeply disappointed. So yeah, this is a bit of a yeah, the UI is not rendering without validation. The UI, the skybox, and the debug objects die if I don't have validation on. I've never seen such Mickey Mouse stuff ever. And like even if I don't load that, like even if I don't load the scene, right? I could still like open, you know, the command console and type or whatever. If I turn this off, nothing. It's bizarre. Could it be a UBO sync issue? I'm beginning to wonder, but the problem is like the captures that I'm getting in RenderDoc, all the data looks correct. Even when I debug the pixel, the color that it returns is correct. How can it be that it draws on the viewport but RenderDoc can't trace it? Yeah, it's completely bizarre. You sync correctly to semaphores and pipeline stages, as far as I know. Yeah. I've not gotten any issues around that for a long time. Like I said, even when we debug the pixel, it returns the right value out of the shader. Are we sure this is not some weird issue in the code, like you obviously read that file and do something different based on validation is on or off? It might be. It might be. But the thing is, what would it be though? Because why would the skybox work, or not work rather, but regular static meshes would? That's what I'm not understanding. Why would the UI fail without it? And furthermore, does RenderDoc, when it takes a capture, does RenderDoc turn off validation layers for that frame? That's the only thing I can think of. Is like maybe when RenderDoc does its captures, it's turning off validation, which is causing this issue. And this stuff all runs through the same pipelines as everything else. So the only things that I can adjust that are different would be like the shader. So we have, here's the shader config, right? So we have, well, these should probably be off, but they get turned off in code, so it doesn't really matter. I suppose I could flip them to false and just see if that fixes it. Here's our attributes, right? Matches what's in the shader. I've checked it a dozen times. And then we have, wait a minute. This might be, hold on. Not material system. We need that size is gigantic. There's no way this is that big. This is one of the reasons I'm doing away with like all the pre-fabricated shaders. I'm doing away with this. This is wrong. This should be, let's see, 256. Actually, wait a minute. I think, no, that is correct, actually. 320. Because this is 4. Right, so we have 256 and then another 64 here. So that actually is correct. Dang it. And then this is 16, which is there. Literally see nothing wrong with this. 320 what? 320 bytes. 320 bytes. So this is sort of like a metadata file to tell my pipeline how to set this up, the shader up. So this has to be in sync with this for right now, only because I don't have reflection set up. Maybe leave it off in config and force on RenderDoc. So a structure, I have to define a size. So what I've done for like the material shader and the water shader is I generate this shader in code, and I just jam a size of in here and do it that way. And I probably will wind up doing the same thing with this eventually. But there might be other ways to draw the skybox, so I don't know that I necessarily want to tie it to like the forward render graph node, which is the only thing that uses it right now. That's why I haven't done it. Oh, you're saying turn off the validation and oh, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah, let's try it. Um, so app config. Um, so it is off there. And let's go here to launch. And we'll enable it here. And then try it. We have UI. And it works here, but I'll bet the capture is still wrong. We can see from our preview, the preview is right. Help me understand. Help me understand this. Let's see. Do you have a depth on? Do you have depth on for the UI? It sounds like everything with depth off might be borked. So it's a mixture, right? The UI has depth off. But the other thing that I'm expecting to see is, I'll open it this way so that we can see what I'm talking about here. So UI is just one of the things that's missing. Whoops. Oh, is it bleating again because it doesn't like the fact that I have render doc open? Let me just get rid of this and then. Okay. Try this again. Why? What is going on here? Depth attachment. Dynamic rendering unused attachments. What? Oh, I wonder if that's the... Hold on. I changed something in shader config that I probably shouldn't have. Okay. So here's the other thing. So the UI has depth off. The skybox has depth off. But these debug lines that you see here that make up this grid have depth on, right? You notice how it's disappearing into the building. So it's not even like a depth buffer specific thing. It's just, it's a mixture of the two. It's not even really consistent as to, you know, why it's actually failing. Let's see. You probably get asked this all the time, but why do you run in VS Better Debugger? It's, and I use this term loosely, it's the best cross-platform debugger out there that I've come across. Because I can use the same setup for Mac, Windows, and Linux. Debug code the exact same way, and it's the same experience across the board. And it just makes it easier to do. I haven't found one that's cross-platform that's quite as good as this. It still has plenty of issues, and it is not great. I don't use the editor for many reasons, but yeah, as far as the actual like debugging experience, it's decent. It's okay. Have you tested it on Windows? I'm currently on Windows, actually. Yeah, so, and that was one thing that I was thinking. I was like, I should test this on Windows. So I'm streaming from Windows tonight. Um, but I get the same thing regardless of it being Windows or Linux. I haven't tried it on Mac yet, but I have no reason to think it would be any different. Rider C-Line is quite good too. Yeah, I don't want the weight of like a full IDE. This is about as heavy as I want to go. And this is already kind of heavy. It's not as heavy as full-blown Visual Studio, but I've not used Rider or C-Line though, so I can't really speak for or against them, but I don't have a license to it either. I'm hoping Rad Debugger becomes a good cross-platform experience. But we'll have to wait. Okay. So trying to think what else I could look at. Let me take a new capture, I guess. I thought that it might be a render doc issue, but the fact that when I turn off validation and just run the application by itself and validation's off, that it does the same thing tells me that's an application issue. I have a feeling, and I might actually have to ask Baldirk this, but I have a feeling that when it does the actual capture, that it somehow disables Vulkan validation for that frame, which would be the reason that when I capture the frame, it's wrong. Actually, let me capture 2 frames. Because see, these previews look fine, but I think this like literally takes a preview of what was in the window and not actually like what was captured itself. Like, I'll open the second one. If we go to texture viewer, see it's wrong. If we open up this capture, it's going to be the same thing. Texture viewer. So I don't think it's a render doc issue, because if I also, like I said, if I go here to app config and disable validation, I get the same result as the render doc capture. Or on Windows, you can change the Chronos validations one by one with the Lunar G tool until you find it. I suppose that's a good point. Let's see. Okay. So I even tried updating my, wait, where did it go? Oh, nice. It can't load its layer manifests. Okay. This may or may not work. We'll see. So we'll try launching it this way. Let's see. Okay, so we override. Available layers. What is it? Where does it tell me which ones I have? I guess would it be edit? Here we go. Implicitly on. Implicitly on. I don't understand what that even means, but okay. Let's go excluded. What? Meaning it's just included with... Okay. Overridden, forced on, application controlled. I guess let's turn the rest of these off, right? I love when I'm doing something like this and it keeps scrolling it back up every single time you change something. That's my favorite. All right. So I guess I can't really turn the implicitly on ones off, but I can try it with just... Well, all right. I'll turn this one off too. Maybe using insight gives you an insight. It didn't. I used it before. Pun intended. Yeah, I figured as much. Okay, so let's... Did I... We'll launch. No difference. Sweet. I don't know what else I can turn off. That was not the correct menu. It was on the right side panel. You talking about this? I mean, I can go back in here and reset it. Oh, you're talking about just disable them this way. Yeah, okay. I see what you mean. Reduced overhead preset. Let's try that one. Nope. Let's turn off shader, I guess. Nada. Core. That seems... Nothing. Fine-grained locking. Sure. Nope. Object lifetime. Nope. Has to be something about synchronization. Could be. That was my thought too. I'm shutting them all off one by one. I guess. Turn that off. Running out of things to turn off. I literally have nothing else to disable. Are you supposed to turn on until you find out which one makes it work? Yes, but I wanted to make sure that I turned everything off first to make sure that that didn't, like, for some reason, do it. So I'll try this one. Nope. All right. Sure. Okay. Nope. Best practices. I don't know if this one... I don't think I ever had that one turned on. No. Whoops. GPU assisted maybe for this. Maybe that's it. Thank you for the follows, by the way. Aha. Okay, so it was one of these. It also takes forever to close now with that on. Okay, so I guess now we have to shut off everything that's under here one by one. I guess we'll do buffer copies first. We still have UI there. Okay. Bet it's an out of bounds buffer. Ooh, that could be. You might be right. I'm going to do this one next, but then I'll try that one. You might be right about that. Yeah, so this one's still fine. Let's turn that one off. Nope. David YK, how's it going? Welcome. There goes bet money, yeah. I guess let's try this one. Nope, it's not that one. I don't think it's going to be this next one either, but I'm going to try it. Between C and Vulkan, it's hard to complain. Fair enough. Yeah, it's I've got a bit of a Heisenbug at the moment though. That's kind of nasty. Nope, that's not it. So literally my validation layers at the moment are fixing something that's wrong in my application. I have to figure out how and why. Descriptor indexing kind of sus. Yeah, I was kind of leaning towards that myself. Let's try from the bottom up though. Okay, so that one's still fine. Is this a recent regression? Could you roll back changes to maybe narrow down what introduced it? It is, but not that recent, right? Because we had a huge refactor that we did, and now we're kind of putting it all back together, and it showed up then. But I did also have some of these issues. I did have some synchronization issues that went all the way back to 0.6 that I found and fixed too. So some of it is not new. Coffee Lava wins. Descriptor indexing. Okay. Why would descriptor indexing validation fix my application? The validation layer is fixing the issue, but the challenge is to identify the root cause. Yeah. And so you'll notice here that the UI isn't rendering. That's one of the symptoms of it, right? If I turn on descriptor indexing, takes a minute to close. It's the validation errors that take forever to shut down, by the way. They're the validation layers. All right, so if I turn that one on and launch, now all of a sudden we have UI. Okay. Validation layers are supposed to tell you what's wrong, though, any logs. So I have all validation logging turned on. I could see if there's anything in here. Oh wait, I would probably need to turn this off and run it and then check the logs. This is all just loader logs, I think. Yeah. This isn't what I want. Can I... Let's see. This is the actual thing that... Yeah, this is just a copy of this log file. That's not actually what I want. Okay. I guess I could look in the console.log and see if there's anything in there, because it should have written out to that. Okay. Oh, interesting. Deprecated extension. VKEXT line rasterization. Do I not need that anymore? Well, that's not what I wanted to happen. Let's try that again. Let's see. KHR line rasterization, which in turn was promoted to Vulkan 1.4. I'm not using 1.4. Oh, so I should be using KHR instead. All right, I'm not really going to worry about that. Okay. That seems like an NVIDIA specific thing. I'm not really thinking that's it either. Performance warning. Oh, I know what that one is, I think. Wait a minute, no. Oh, that's just bleating because because I created... I'm not going to worry about that. I can fix that later if I need to. Allocate memory, set priority. I don't see anything here that's like terrible though. These are just... This must be the best practices stuff. I don't actually see any errors in here per se. In fact, the word error doesn't even show up. The log level is, I think I had everything turned on. Oh, that's right. I had to turn all that off because I was trying to determine. Yeah, all right. Let's try that again. All right. We got that. Okay. Let's go to And that's with everything turned on. It's still, you know what, don't save that. Let me make sure it's actually, here we go. Okay. Yeah, it looks like there is some synchronization stuff going on down here. Yep. Yep. Sync issues. And I'm betting it's the same 2 or 3 issues that are just like repeating themselves, as Vulkan does all the time. Okay, those are just performance warnings. I can address those later. Boy, it's super verbose. Okay. Separate sampler. Oh, it's bleating about separate samplers and images for marginally better performance. Yeah, okay, I'm going to skip that. Let's see. Okay, this is mostly warnings so far. I did see that there were some errors down at the bottom, but it looks like... Yeah, here we go. Okay. So, let's see what the heck is going on here. I'm going to parse this one. Move this out of the way. Okay. Right after right. Okay, so that's a secondary command buffer. Sync late fragment tests, depth stencil attachment right. So we're writing to a depth stencil after it's being, or while it's being written. Access info. Executed access info. Command end rendering. And this is in the shadow render graph node. Okay. That's not what we're really having problems with, so I'm going to ignore that one for now. Sort and bind. This might be something. Nope, this is shadow stuff again. I'm going to ignore that one too. Shadow turn was bound twice in the frame. Okay, I'm not really worried about that either. That's more of a performance thing. Are these all... No, there's some other stuff down here. Okay. I'll bet this one is probably... Yep, that's the shadow again. So I think anything that has this handle that we can actually just get rid of, or ignore rather. I think we're not synchronizing correctly between the shadow matte pass and when it actually gets used. I think that's what all this is about. But we're kind of getting away with it anyway. What's this one? Again, shadow map. This one's a read after writes, and again, I think that's also shadow map. No, that one's actually different. Okay. Let's space this guy out. I really need to write some sort of formatter to do this for me so I don't have to do it manually every single time. Okay. Read after write. For entry 0. Secretary, okay. Executed access info. So we executed sync vertex attribute, input attribute, vertex attribute read. Command draw indexed. But then we also did a, oh, I bet I know what that is. Debug region, prepare frame. Yes, okay. I do know what that is. So this is something that's also a bit of a long-standing issue that I am going to have to fix, but it's not been a problem before now, and I don't think it's the problem. What this one is at the beginning of every frame, if we have updates to a text control, and specifically the text control that we're talking about would be like the bitmap text that's in the bottom, which gets updated practically every frame. Then on the beginning of the next frame, we regenerate the geometry for that text with all the glyphs and all that stuff, and re-upload that vertex data at the beginning of that frame. And then it gets rendered later on. But the problem is we only have one vertex buffer right now. We don't have one per frame. And so the issue is it can be writing to that vertex buffer to prepare for the next frame when the previous frame is actually still being rendered. And so that's what this is complaining about. That is something that I did know about, but I don't think it's the problem. Let's see. Will validation layers warn you about what happens in the shader? They'll tell you if like they'll tell you certain things. They'll tell you if you flat out have an error in the shader. They will also tell you and warn you about things like if you have like an input or an output that's not used, it'll tell you about that. Like if you go to assign something out and then that's not picked, you know, let's say you have an out property in your vertex shader and then that is not used as an in on that same binding on the fragment shader, it'll warn you about stuff like that. I think the main issue isn't logged right now because it's not fixed currently, so validation doesn't detect it. Probably. I'm just curious as to what all this is in here, but I have a feeling it's all the same kind of stuff. I think it's all around vertex buffer updates and the shadow map stuff. Could be read after write, buffer is not ready on pipeline stage. Do we have any read after writes in here? Other than this one. Yeah, I mean, the way that I'm doing this though is if we need like a okay, how do I explain this? So let's say that we have a string of 5 characters that's being displayed, right? So I've uploaded the geometry to the vertex buffer for those 5, right? And then the next frame, it changes to 7 characters. What I do is, like, if the size that I need in the vertex buffer increases, I create a new allocation, which is going to be somewhere else in the buffer. And then when I do a free on our render buffers or our vertex buffer. I don't actually zero out that data or change it in any way. I leave the old data where it was. So the only way that this would actually be a real problem is if the text length is the same or if it's shorter. So we should never be trampling data that comes after it, right? So even though that this issue exists and this is bleating about it, rightfully so, the only thing it should ever mess up is itself, because it never actually exceeds the bounds of where it's supposed to be. So I think whenever we're getting this, it's because we have a string that is the same length or shorter that's getting updated, and that same section of geometry is getting updated. Which is the reason we've been getting away with it, because if it is a longer string, then it just moves to an entirely different section within the buffer. Do we have... How many of these do we have? Copy. A bunch. Okay, we do have different handles, but those might be different command buffers. Nope, that's the same one. So just looking at this really quickly. Yep, same thing. And how I know where that is, by the way, is this debug region right there, the prepare frame. That's the only thing we do in prepare frame, is stuff like that. So I don't think it's that. Are you using any kind of resource arrays in your shaders? When you say resource arrays, do you mean like texture arrays? Sampler arrays, that kind of thing? Because yes, we are. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Rugs, how's it going? Good to see you. Let's see. I think you're done with Twitch chat. What are you doing with index? Wait, what are you doing with the index you send on the uniform buffer in the shader? Wait a minute. What are you doing with the index you send on the uniform buffer in the shader? For the skybox, like the view index, I use that to index into the views array, right? So if I go to, I don't want to lose my spot in this. Let me move this out of the way. So if we go to the vertex shader, we have this views array, right? Which is just an array of mat4s, right? And so I use this view index to index into that array, if that's what you're asking. And that's done here. Might be out of bounds then, since descriptor indexing fixed it. It might be out of bounds. I mean, it's possible, right? So all of what I call my render buffers, which is really just a wrapping around a Vulkan buffer that has a free list to manage it, right? All of those things have checks to make sure they don't exceed the bounds. So we shouldn't be doing that either. I would name a command buffer UI commands, push all the UI there, and filter on the logs for that C buffer, given that the UI is breaking. It's not just the UI, though. That's the problem. It's the UI, the skybox, and our debug shapes. So it's 2D and 3D objects, both depth tested and not depth tested. Yeah, so that's the problem. Is it's not just one thing. It's a bunch of things, which still makes me think that maybe I'm trampling data somewhere. I just don't know where. I'm learning C. What should my first project be? The one I usually tell people is start off by writing a string processing library. Reason I say that is because it'll teach you just about everything you need to know as far as the language is concerned. It'll teach you about memory management. It'll teach you about pointers and how all that stuff works. So yeah, I mean, obviously, once you get past Hello World, right? Write a library that does all kinds of stuff with strings, right? Look at any implementation of languages out there that have like fully blown string libraries, that you can get an idea of what all the functions are that you can write for it. I guarantee you, by the time you're done with that, you'll have a pretty good grasp of C. The error will appear in the logs in that command buffer. This way you can pin it down. So one thing I do have, and I've been pretty good about this across the whole code base, is I have everything named, right? So I know like this is named, and then this is my secondary command buffer that's also named, and then looks like we don't have a name on this buffer, right? So that would probably be helpful to have that. And actually, I think these are the same. Yeah, those are the same address. So those are the same thing. And then I also have a debug region, because I also put some of those in place, right? So prepare frame. These not only show in the validation layers like that, but they also show up in render doc like this. So you can actually see what's where, which is one of the reasons that I set those up. Happy New Year to you as well. Build it yourself for understanding different C concepts. Doesn't C already have substring functions? Yes, it does have it, but like Jeet is saying, build all that stuff from scratch. Don't use any of the standard library stuff, because that will teach you how the language works. And that's why I say build your own, right? Because it's a good way to get a solid grasp of the language. Yeah, no worries, man. No worries. No worries at all. Max, how's it going? Good to see you. Isn't it considered a non-uniform indexing? Also compare what those three specific shaders do. So, we are doing this in more than one place. So we do, if we take a look at shader materials standard, we'll go into the vertex shader there as well. We do something similar here as well. So we have views, right? And we have view positions. Each of these are 4 elements, right? And if we come down here to our push constant, we have a view index. And that view index is used down here at the bottom in the same exact way that we're using it elsewhere. So, this shader isn't doing anything differently than this one is. And I know that the view is working correctly because it does render to the application when the validation layers are in place. So it's not that we're accessing data incorrectly or like we've got like an off by 1 or something like that. It's a sync issue for sure. And we can tell that just because when we, well, let's see, which one of these was it that actually, I think it was, get rid of that one. It was this descriptors indexing, which is very bizarre. Why is that? The validation should be fixing it though. And descriptor indexing should be having to do with the descriptor itself, not the actual, like, what is contained within it. Right? So, like, let's see. And to see what functions there are to build, because I haven't used them all, obviously, just look at documentation. Yep, look at man pages or look online for those things. Yeah. Yep. There's all kinds of resources out there to figure out all the different functions you should write, for sure. Soulfoam, how's it going? Good to see you. We got Coffee Lava, Soulfoam, Orshi in here. Madness. I think Spiro's in here somewhere still, too. All we're missing is Teacap, I guess, right? Unless he's, like, lurking or something. Alright. So let me continue looking through this and see if I can't find our synchronization issue. Because obviously it's in here somewhere. And I'm thinking it's going to be one of these read after write type deals. So I think this is 3B60 is the same handle. I think these are all going to be the same thing. I feel like they're all actually... This is all just repeating, actually. So I guess the only other thing I can do... I'm trying to think if it makes sense to just turn off render graph nodes. But we'd also have to not update those things in order to make that work. And the weird thing is the skybox doesn't actually get updated every frame. Like once it's set, it's set. The only thing that gets changed is the push descriptors. Push constants, rather. 10x developer, how's it going? Love the name. Are you using OG Synchro or Synchro 2? OG Synchro. Yep, I've not done Synchro 2. I've thought about stepping over to it, but I haven't needed to thus far. And like I said, most of this stuff here is text updates. And I could probably... In fact, let's see, where am I making that? I think it's going to be... if I were to disable these two, which is the only thing that gets updated every single frame, I'll bet a lot of those go away. Not all of them. Let's see, I need to run that with this. It doesn't seem to have fixed it, though. Interestingly enough. Come on, close. Let's get rid of that and reopen it. Oh, we still have some prepare frames in here. Did that not build? I thought it did. wish there was a dark mode for this tool. It's like a freaking flashbang. Got quite sick before New Year's, so watching you from bed. I'm sorry to hear you're sick. Hope you feel better soon. Getting sick sucks. All right. Read after writes. Okay, we do have some different ones here. Right after writes. Okay, so these are the reflection. Oh, interesting. Our reflection passes are also overlapping. Sync copy transfer, right? Isn't that also? It's almost like we need barriers of some kind at the every time we execute commands. I don't think that's going to fix it though. And that seems terrible. Shouldn't have to do that. Let's see. So this is layout transitions for these three images, which is... Okay, barriers would probably fix that. But I don't think that's the problem. Image layouts aren't the problem. And it seems to be just the same thing over and over again. The only thing that changes Nope. What are we drawing here without indices? What are we drawing here without indices? Let me launch a new one of these. It's funny you say string processing library because I actually wanted to make a data structures library. That's also a good one. If you're using OG, maybe just refactoring to Synchro 2 will help. Might be worth doing at some point, honestly. Hey, Care, how's it going? First time chatter, welcome. OG Synchro is one of the reasons I use web GPU for my projects, for my toy projects. Yeah, it sucks, putting it mildly. I do need to step up to Synchro 2. It's just this, that wasn't really a thing when I started this code base, so that's one of the reasons why I just never bothered stepping up to it. All right, so what do we have here under... I don't think we have a way to actually visualize. Copy source. Capture has 14 issues. Oh, okay. What are those? Oh, these are popping up now because I have the validator thing open. Okay, these were the ones we were looking at before. And it's all in prepare frame except for the reflection and refraction passes. So these I can fix, I think, with just memory barriers, but I might have to fix this now. I was hoping to get away with not doing it, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to. Right after right. Oh, wait a minute. On a swap chain image. That could mess something up. Pipeline barrier. Command N rendering. In the standard UI. It is an issue with that. That's what I was looking for right there. Okay. That is what I need to know. So we don't have... We're transitioning the layout. While trying to end rendering. Am I reading that right? It should be end rendering, then transition layout. Let me see something. Okay, so maybe maybe it's in here. Okay, so we disable depth test and write, use the shader, apply per frame data. So we bind frame, set the UBO data, upload it, apply it. For each one of these, okay, this is drawing all the individual objects. That's not relevant anymore. This should actually, well, it is relevant. It's just a to-do instead of a left off. And rendering. Okay, so it's saying this end rendering was problematic. Right barrier 0. So I guess the end rendering is still happening when we try to transition the layout, is what I'm getting from that. So we don't have any sort of right barrier on that. So I guess my question is, when we begin rendering, we do have a list of the attachments we have here that we're using. We basically need to put a barrier on all of those attachments that are being used. That is then done just before this down here. this, actually. Okay, so before we end the command buffer, before we do the end rendering, we probably need a barrier here. Let's see. What all does this want? Oh, command buffer. Okay, so that's going to be secondary handle. We want source, stage mask, and destination. Source, then destination. So we're going to want... Maybe I should make this really broad and just say top of pipe and end of pipe. So source has to be, what is it, end or bottom of pipe, I think. I might have these backwards. Top of pipe. And then I'm going to try this without any... Oh, dependency flags has to be in there too. I probably am going to need a bunch of image memory barriers, I think. But I'm going to try it without them first. Oops, I want there. Okay. Because this one should basically just force the whole dingus thing to wait, I think. I'm also going to have to figure out how to actually get a reference to the attachments, because I don't actually have them here. I only had them in the beginning. Meaning I'd have to save those off somewhere if that doesn't work. Let's see. Where do you recommend to really understand what's going on behind code and stuff and understand infrastructure, plugins, dependencies, etc.? I feel like I'm the guy who knows how to code, but only knows how to code if you know where I'm coming from. It's kind of a loaded question, but it depends on what you're wanting to learn about, right? If you're wanting to learn about like game dev and stuff, the book I always suggest is this one, which is Game Engine Architecture by Jason Gregory. This contains some high-level info, but it also contains some behind-the-scenes stuff as well. I think it's a fantastic book. It is very specific to game engines, though, so if you're not looking for game engine dev stuff, this might not be for you, but I heavily recommend this book all the time on the stream. So I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for, or... doing things like reading language specs and reading, if you want to learn Vulkan, reading the Vulkan spec. Reading specifications on things helps a lot, for sure. Okay, this built. I guess let me take a new capture. Nope, that doesn't look like it fixed it. I think I actually need the memory barriers in there. Poop. Okay, so I've got to figure out how to get those. So when we're setting up this begin rendering, we do flip a flag in the primary command buffer And then we pick a secondary command buffer. And that's what we actually begin rendering against. And that actually we begin that one, and then we would end that one. So I guess I could store... It feels kind of dirty to store them there, but I guess I could do that. Because I need to know... let's see. VK image memory barrier, right? So... Oops. Wow. Dyslexia. So what do I need in this? I need the image. I don't want to transition layouts, though. Do I have to fill out all of this stuff? I don't necessarily want to do an image transition. Time to look at the old Vulkan spec. Okay. Parameters of an image memory barrier. Here we go. Okay. So obviously we need a source access mask and destination access. Do old layout and new layout have to be specified? Oh, I guess I could set them equal to one another. But then I have to know what that layout is. I mean, I suppose we could use... I suppose it would be a color attachment or a depth stencil attachment. I suppose we could make that assumption. I know what I could do. I could create an array of VK image memory barriers. When I start, well, layout must be undefined, or the current layout of this. Maybe that's the answer. So maybe I create one of these for each attachment when I actually start. You know, do the begin rendering, store those off, and then retrieve them here and pass them in. I think that makes sense. As far as what to pass here, though, define a layout transition. So how do I not define a layout transition? Can I just use I guess I could just use the same thing. All right, so when I do this, let's see, we can have one depth stencil layer, or one depth stencil target rather. And then multiple color targets. Okay, so I guess what I can do let's see. Attachment count. Does it? I don't think it matters what order they're in. No, okay. Equals, and we'll do k handle is invalid, depth stencil target. So if it's invalid, that's going to start off at 0, otherwise it's going to start off at 1. And then we can do color target count plus that. That will give me image memory barrier array. I guess I can call it image barriers. Equals KLXC array, VK image memory barrier, and that's going to be attachment count. This is going to have to be stored here, annoyingly. Along with the attachment count, actually. So I can just do this on the secondary. Attachment count. Oh, this needs to be secondary attachment count. Okay. Store image barrier structs to used at the end. I don't like doing this dynamic allocation every single time. I might yeah, that's crap actually. Let me not do that. Let's do a predefined amount. Let's put like 16 in there. Let's put like 8. 8's kind of not quite as ridiculous. Okay, so we'll set the attachment count, and then we'll do U32 index equals 0. Now, if we have a depth stencil attachment, if we actually have one, then we will do VK image memory barrier equals the address of secondary image barriers sub attachment index. And then we'll do attachment index plus here. And then all we have to do is fill out barrier. And the image is going to be image handle. Let's see. I wonder if I can just leave new layout and old layout. Yeah, I'll specify them. It's going to be this. So we'll do new layouts, we'll do old layout. Oh, we better do an S type. Need that. Is going to be VK image memory. Oh wait, I guess it's going to be structure type image memory barrier. There we go. Destination access mask. I guess I'll get more granular with it afterwards, but I think I'm just going to do super broad at first. So source, and then this needs to be bottom of pipe. I can always make it more granular once we figure it out. Source and destination queue family index. Do I really have to sort that out? I don't think so. Let me see something. Do I have to do all the sub-resource range crap too? That's kind of annoying if I do. I probably should have just copied it from here. Yeah, okay. So let's see, new layout, we have these two I'll keep, that one we have, these two I'll keep that, all right, and then there, okay. So we'll do that. And then we'll need to do the same thing. Oops, this needs to be aspect. Depth bit. Should we do depth and stencil? All right, I'll take this, put it here, right there for each one of these. And then this is going to be, let's see, do we even have the image here? This is going to be, oh, right. Yoink. Oops. Okay. This is going to be color attachment optimal. Let me move these S types to the top. And then color bit. Okay, you know what? Let's do that. Then I could switch back to just using image. Okay. Okay, I think that'll give me what I need then to come over on this side. And let's see, which is image barriers, I think are the last ones. So we're going to do secondary attachment count and secondary image barriers. Kringer's floss that this works. I have no idea if it's going to. Hi, I love your videos. You're one of my inspirations for getting into C. Do you have any book recommendations of designing the architecture of a game, not a game engine, in C? First of all, thank you for the kind words, and I'm glad to be of help. But for a game, not game engine. The problem is the architecture of a game is usually based around the game engine and is highly specific to the game engine you're using. So it's kind of hard to answer that. It depends highly on the game engine itself and how you structure it, unfortunately. LaFoley, how's it going? Good to see you. Okay. Let's see if this worked. I'm thinking it probably isn't going to, but it's worth a shot. I'm going to have to shut down anyways, or actually over time. Yeah, it didn't work. Okay. So let me take a capture, see if it at least got rid of that issue. Almost done with the refactor? Yes. Actually, most of the refactor is complete. We are just debugging issues at the moment. Hello? RenderDoc? Why have you done this? Cool. So apparently if you use... That's awesome. It just poops itself if you use the this tool. Okay. So it's just completely crapped itself. That's nice. All right. Well, on that note, we know it didn't work. I'll have to do some additional debugging to see if I can get to the bottom of it. But at least I have a direction to go in now. So that's something. Red and RenderDoc, I'm going to head out. Yeah, it's just like... just gave up for tonight. It's like, yeah, you know what? I'm done with this for the day. All right. Speaking of done with this for the day, that is me also. So I really appreciate you guys being here. We're going to find somebody to raid. But yeah, if you guys are new here and you haven't already, I would really appreciate a follow. Thank you for that, by the way. Trying to grow the channel and whatnot, you know. So every follow definitely helps me do that. So I really appreciate that. Okay. Just going to see if we can find something that's... looks interesting. Still looking through the list. All right, I think I might actually do something that I haven't done in a while in terms of raids. Hardly ever any C streams. Yeah, exactly. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to support something that I think is a good cause that I haven't actually done in a while. Let me find it. So we are going to be raiding Alvea's Sanctuary. And this is a non-profit animal sanctuary that is in part at least paid for by just people having the stream up and via ad revenue. So I like to support this every once in a while whenever I can think about it. And I think it's a really good cause because these are animals that can't go out into the wild for one reason or another. And they're exotic animals, so they're not easy to take care of, not cheap to take care of. So, like I said, I like to support this any way that I can. So, we're gonna do that tonight. Thank you guys so much for being here. YouTube guys, I will link this to you over on that side in just a second. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next stream. See ya. And YouTube folks, that is where they are going. All right, see you guys later.